Hello, I'm Mike Rogers, and I'm going to talk to you today about greenhouse pollination. A couple statistics about the greenhouse market and the market for pollination services inside a greenhouse. I'll go over real quick. While there is not a lot of accurate statistics for the majority of crops grown, there are quite a few that pollination services tend to be pretty important for. So greenhouse tomato grown market exceeds over $15 billion a year in the United States, making up the majority of these pollination services from bumblebees. The U.S. alone has a greenhouse market, so the production of new greenhouses of about $860 million, as well as we have over 1 million acres of growing space in the U.S. So, as I said before, the majority of these pollination services are supplied by bumblebees. The majority of the statistics available do speak to the use of them in the tomato greenhouse industry. But honeybees are also used. They don't seem to be as effective or as preferred, but are still used in certain instances. The bumblebee does have some key advantages over Apis mellifera species or subspecies over the different bumblebee species that are utilized. The bumblebee boxes that people use for pollination inside a greenhouse are non-regenerating, so you have to get one each crop or each season of crops. And there's also expendable honeybees, where for a single crop you can get a non-regenerating set of cells for so many workers that they will last long enough for your crop depending upon what you are growing in your greenhouse. These honeybee hives can cost the the regenerating ones would be about 100 per hive per season to be rented for your greenhouse, and depending upon what you're pollinating, this may or may not be good enough for the bees. They may have to supplement this by either going outside of the greenhouse or having access to some supplementary nutrition. Or for about $300 per bumblebee colony per crop, you can have a more efficient pollinator, as well as a not as much reliance on regenerating the hive or worrying about all the equipment involved with traditional honeybee keeping. And there have been some research done on stingless bees being used, but they're not commercially available, though they did seem to be effective for certain crops. So here I have a photo of a very generic bumblebee here on the left, and then a box on the right here from Copper that you would traditionally see when you purchase one of these boxes for your non-regenerating group of bumblebees. So some of the issues with bumblebees as this market grows and the different numerous variety of crops and commodities that are created and grown inside of greenhouse grows, bumblebees seem to struggle at certain ranges, just the same as with honeybees. But bumblebees, their particular struggles tend to be related to higher humidity. The idea that they're non-replenishable makes them somewhat expensive, and the market is particularly cornered for certain species in certain areas. Honeybees tend to struggle with long-term use, usually have to be cycled out, as well as they can't survive in lower temperature, not as low as a bumblebee will, as well as bumblebees will tend to pollinate even when it is non-optimal. They don't create any honey, so they beat the honeybee in this regard, in the fact that they sustain off the nectar and they're not collecting an excess of nectar. But really the big issue is that bumblebee comparisons are always made against the honeybee, and in many cases neither of them seem sufficient for certain crop pollination. Bumblebees do have as of now, greater pollinator benefits, but as I said, only really in comparison. There have been new systems and technologies that have been designed and utilized, incorporated into smart greenhouses, into their infrastructure, so that evaluations of the efficacy of different pollinators can be assessed. This has only been tested very minorly. I believe this newest system that is intended to be used to test different species of bees and bumblebees was created last year. It was at the end of 2018. As well as there's issues with our current system of transporting exotic alien invasive, but essentially now invasive bumblebees to other countries and then becoming a huge pest and pushing out native bumblebees. This stems somewhat from the fact that many bumblebees are not, we don't understand how to cultivate them in large numbers, or no one has commercially attempted to. So different subspecies or entirely different species are pulled from other countries and used where they probably shouldn't be. Here's some of my citations, or all of my citations, and I hope that you found this informative. Thank you.